What is going on, YouTube? What have you guys been up to? It's been a minute since I've seen you guys, and today we're here to talk about yet another Cobra part. Many of you guys have probably dealt with this one once or twice in your time. I've dealt with it. I've pulled it in and out probably 4 or 5 times now, maybe even 6. Shoot, I don't even know. But today we're going to be talking about these guys, these alternators, and the pulleys on the alternators. Now, this right here is a factory pulley. It's 2.6 inches. It's a pretty small guy. That means when we put a big lower on our car, we're gonna also have to increase this guy's size in order to maintain the proper ratio and proper RPM of our alternator. So, what do you guys know about this? I know quite a bit about it. I don't know if you guys know about it, but I'm here to show you guys what I have, my setup, how it works, and let me show you guys on this piece of paper I printed out the ratios and the specs, and I went ahead and filled it in for me and my specs as well, so you guys will be able to see that. So let me show you guys that piece of paper. Here it is, guys. So if you're looking right here, we got a piece of paper. It's got numbers on it. I know the green's hard to read. Sorry about that, guys. But if we start here, this is a stock alternator and a stock lower. So this whole chart up here is basically, it's stock upper with the stock lower numbers across the top. And then we have a stock, and this is what I mean by stock. This is the stock alternator pulley. This is the stock lower. So that's what this top chart refers to. The one below it is with a 2-pound. The one below that's with a 4-pound. And they have an old and a new because they changed their design between the two. I guess they figured the 8.5 inch lower didn't really make 4 pounds, so they went to an 8.6. Same thing with the 6-pound. It went from 9 inches to 9.1. I don't know, maybe it was just cheaper, who knows, but they did that, they changed that. So that's what that is. So we want to look at the factory numbers on this guy to see what the car was doing when it was in factory spec. Well, factory is this guy at idle, so 800 RPM is pretty close to idle, with a stock lower, with a 2.923 ratio, which means you take 7.6 divided by 2.6, that's the number you get, that's your ratio. When the car is idling at 800 RPM, we have the alternator doing 2338. So that's what it's doing at idle. And then we say red line, which is 65 on these cars, it's doing 19,000 even. Okay? So what does that mean? Well, that simply means when our car is idling, it's doing 2338 RPM, 2338. That's how fast it's spinning. And at 6,500 RPM, we're doing 19,000, or the alternator is doing 19,000 RPM. Now, what we want to do, guys, is try and match that factory speed, because I believe Ford knew what they were doing when they did this and did it. They've done all the math, all the work. They basically did all the legwork with this car. That's the reason it's set up to spin as fast as it is and do what it does. Now, we have problems with these alternators. We know the regulators go bad. That's a common issue with them. And it's not really the alternator's fault or the speed of the alternator. It's more so in the design and location of the regulators. They have a very poor design where they just can't wick away the heat fast enough or properly, and they just fail. It's kind of common. So I have one torn apart here. I'll show you guys. You can see this is the regulator. These are the heat sinks on the regulator. Pretty easy to get at, and these are what go bad. Now this alternator right here that I have looks brand new because it has very little miles on it, and as you can see over here, this came apart. It's supposed to look like the front one on there like that, but as you can see, came unglued because the guy that made this is kind of a ding-dong. His tack welds right here came off and right here, so it came undone, started arcing on the outside of the cage, which then led to it obviously not working and kind of destroying itself. So, and then here's my factory alternator that came out, which has the factory pulley on it. I was just showing you guys. This guy had the regulator fail. So what I'm going to do is pull the regulator out of this guy and put it in this guy and hopefully have a nice backup alternator. What's in the car right now, it's a AutoZone Reman. So it's been pretty good, pretty happy with it. But what we want to do, guys, is we want to match that factory speed, because if we don't, if we're spinning it too fast, we're going to be working this guy and getting him even hotter. And if we spin it too slow, you're going to run into the same issue where you're going to do what they call, it's kind of like browning out. You're drawing too much power or too much amperage, and the alternator can't keep up. Now, there's people that'll be like, well, Chad, you're an idiot. That's why there's all these, guys put these bigger lowers on them or bigger alternator pulleys, and it works and everything's Gucci goo, and they'll never fail when you do that. That's not the case, guys. These alternators fail because of the regulators, and it doesn't matter whether you overspin it a little bit, you're at factory speed, or if you underspin it. In my opinion, you're in the same boat. I don't think really any of those have to do with how bad the alternator is gonna or how quickly it's gonna take a crap. Now, obviously, if you overspin it a lot, you tend to have issues, but what I recommend is matching factory spec and factory speed. Now, my factory alternator was on the car for about 6,000, well, the whole life of it up to 21,000 miles, I believe, is when I finally pulled it off. And at 15,000, or we'll say 16,500 miles, I put an 8-pound lower on the car. So it had an 8-pound lower with a stock pulley on it, and it was really being overspun a lot. Let me show you guys on this chart what it was doing and how much it was being overspun with that spec. If you guys look here, an 8-pound lower is 9.55 inches, and I had an 8-pound lower with the stock alternator, which this whole chart is a stock alternator pulley. At idle, we were doing 2,938 RPM, and at 6,500, which is red line, we were doing 23,875. That's a lot of RPM, guys, for that alternator to be doing, and it lived a long time like that. And it was a lot of really high pulls, so it actually spent a lot of time up here at this RPM because I would rev this car out and run it out. So let me show you guys what I have on the car now and what it looks like. So I have a 3.2 inch alternator pulley with a 12-pound lower, and that happens to be 10.55 inches. So if you take that spec or that number, 10.55 divided by 3.2, we get a ratio of 3.29875. And at idle, when the car is doing 800 RPM, our alternator pulley is doing 2,637 RPM, and at red line it's doing 21,429 RPM. Now, we're absolutely still overspinning this alternator, guys. I know that, and I kind of want to fix it. I want to get it down a little bit, but as of right now, the car's been doing really well. It's not too unhappy. Just like before when I was overspinning it even more, the car was happy, guys. It made good power. It's always had really good response, throttle response. When it's nighttime, the lights are on, the fan kicks on, the radio's on, and somebody turns a dome light on. The lights are nice and bright, nothing dims. I mean, when the headlights are on and it's at nighttime and the fan kicks on, you barely see a noticeable dim initial when the initial draw hits, and then after that, it's super bright, and the voltage is excellent, guys. At idle, it's 14 volts. It'll drop down to like 13.6 to 13.8 once it warms up and the car's doesn't have a lot of demand on it. If I turn the lights on, the battery will still, you know, the voltage won't even drop. If it's at 13.6 volts and I turn the lights on, it'll do initial hit and drop, and it'll come back and it'll hold 13.6 to 13.8 volts, guys. Like, this alternator on a factory reman does really well being overspun because, like I said, we're overspinning it. We're able to generate all the amperage and power this car is drawing, even with the lights and stuff on. So it does really well. It's a decent alternator from the factory. Let me show you guys what I have coming, because I have a new alternator coming for it. Or a new pulley, I should say. Same alternator, but I got a new pulley coming for it. That guy is going to be a 3.5 inch pulley. So if you guys look here, we've got a 3.5 inch alternator pulley with a 12-pound lower. That's a 10.5. Little over 10.5 inch. So if we take 10.55 divided by 3.5, we get a ratio of 3.01. And if you guys look at the factory spec, it's 2.92. So we're getting really close to that factory ratio. If your ratio, pulley to your two pulley ratios makes what this is, then all of this is going to match across the board, just so you guys know. That's kind of what the ratio is. So if your ratio is close, it's going to be a heads up that, hey, all of these should be close. So let's go ahead and take a look. At idle with that, we're at 2,411 RPM. Again, factory was 2338. And then if we go to 6,500 RPM, we're at 19,592. And again, factory is 19,000. So guys, we're getting really close to that factory number. That's right where I think I want to be. I think the car will perform best at that RPM, and it should even make a little more power because we're not spinning that alternator as much. So I'm really hoping everything works out well. to be honest, I may hate all this. I may hate this 3.5 inch pulley. It may be a waste of money. I may be like, man, get this out of here. I'm putting it back to where I had it because I like the way the car operates, because the car works so well with good amperage and good voltage being supplied to it all the time. I love the fact that the fans can kick on with the headlights on and the voltage is still at 13.5 plus volts. I think that's awesome. That's one thing that I've always wanted. And I've thought about, guys, don't get me wrong, I've thought about buying, you know, like there's guys like J2 Fab and you know, I don't know if that's, there's a couple other guys on there on these forums that make and sell kits for these alternators that you buy their alternator. And if you buy their alternator, I highly recommend, they sell a wiring kit with it. I highly recommend buying a wiring kit with it. But that would be your ultimate fix, in my opinion. If you want to just get out of this whole thing, do that. But at the same time, you're still going to have to spec this properly if you've changed your alternator pulley. The beauty of this chart is I have it, I know what factory is, so I can match factory. Therefore, I know my factory is going to work. Now, these guys with their other alternators, their alternators may not, their RPM chart may be completely different. If you guys look here, this is all in the red except for the idle, but everything else is in the red, and this is a factory. This is all factory specs, and the red is bad, right? The green's where you want to be, supposedly. But I think this chart is made for somebody else's alternator. Now, I don't know whose it is. It's obviously not factory because all this red wouldn't be red because this is right where we want to be. But I wanted to kind of also tell you guys and show you guys, this is a big misconception that I see is people always freak out when they see red. They're like, oh my God, look at all this stuff in the red. My alternator shouldn't be there. This is bad. And that's not the case, guys. You want to match these factory specs. You want to be right there. If you do get one of those guys' alternators, you're going to have to go back and find a chart or ask them. Say, hey, can you send me a chart with your alternator of the RPMs? Or say, hey, what do you want this thing to spin at? What is the range that this alternator is allowed to spin at? That way I know how to keep it or what pulley size I need to put on it in order to maintain that. Or you may be able to say, hey, look guys, I have a 12-pound lower on my car. I got an 8-pound, a 4-pound, whatever it may be. I plan on staying with that. And I would love for you guys to size me a pulley you feel is appropriate for my alternator. Now they may or may not be able to do that depending on if they have the knowledge and know-how. I don't know. I haven't contacted any of these guys. I'm sure some of them do and will be smart enough to do it. Obviously, if they sell an alternator kit, I would think they would be smart enough to know the specs that it should operate at. Yet again, talk to them, see what they can do for you. I may be doing that later on down the road, asking them, and I may show you guys. I'm going to obviously take you guys along through that process and figuring out what they say, or just showing you what they say and saying, hey, you know, I would tell you my honest opinion. Hey, I don't like this guy because I don't think he knows what he's doing because he doesn't know his specs or this or that. So just be wary of that. If they don't know their specs like they should, I would probably stay away from them. And if they do, obviously they know what they're doing because they know what they're doing. I mean, that's all there is to it. So I hope you guys appreciate this video and like this video. If you do, give it a big fat thumbs up. I don't want to make it too long, keep you guys here too long. So a quick short little video for you guys. And hopefully I solved some of the problems and debates with this and showed you guys what you can and can't do. And I think I may do a video, guys, coming up on this car, the 12-pound lower, and what you need to do to install it. I would obviously like to get my 3.5-inch pulley on and get that set up and make sure it all works the way that I want it to. That way I can give you guys kind of a complete kit, a how-to on everything you need from alternator pulley to your lower pulley to your belt size and all that type of stuff. So it's kind of a all-in-one throw-together kit. That way you guys can just look at this video or I should say my upcoming video and go, hey, here's everything that he has, here's everything you need to do it, and I'll put everything in the description on that video to all the parts. That way it's literally a just easy peasy, order this, have it installed, and you're ready to rock and roll and go kick some butt. So like I said, like this video guys if you liked it, subscribe and hit that notification bell, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Now get the heck out of here.